We are here to stand witness to a great crime, a crime astounding to our modern sensibilities, not only because of its destructiveness, but as much because for hundreds of years it was memorialized as an act of benevolence. Behind me is a statue and monument to one of the most terrible warlords in American history. He ruled about 150 years prior to the date of our reconstructed city, but the adulation shown him was just as strong in the year 2013 as it had ever been. His name was Abraham Lincoln. His claim to fame was starting the first ever war fought within the United States, a war fought between two groups of Americans. Lincoln, like all of those in power, could not tolerate those who did not obey him. And like many whose power is threatened, he reacted with violence. He rationalized the brutality, killings, and coercion necessary to retain his control over others by telling himself it was all a means to achieve eventual peace, harmony, and order. One can only wonder at a mind capable of such self-deception. Remember when we were at the Capitol and I said you might ask yourself, why didn't people tell the government to take a hike? Well, there was one attempt in American history where a group of states organized and attempted to do just that. In 1860, a group of southern states declared themselves independent from the United States and attempted, as was their right, to set up their own sovereign nation. They soon found out that the central government would not give up power without a fight. Lincoln had just come to power as the new president, and he faced a decision. He had two options: either let the southern states go in peace or try to recapture them through force of arms. The choice was his. There was no threat to the security or safety of the states that chose to remain under his authority, and there was tremendous opposition to getting involved in a war. In addition, he had no moral justification to force anyone to kill or die for a cause just because he, Lincoln, believed in it. Nevertheless, Lincoln put aside whatever reservations he might have had privately and chose war. Within a few months, hundreds of thousands were forced against their will to go off to fight in his war. They were not given an option. "I have decided," this man seemed to say to them, "that your lives will be sacrificed for a cause that I think deserves it. Your opinion on the matter is not my concern." As discussed at the Iwo Jima Monument, these men faced imprisonment and ridicule if they refused Lincoln's orders. Now, it is certainly true that they should have refused despite his threats. A fear of ridicule or imprisonment is no justification to kill another person without cause. Those millions who fought for Lincoln were certainly not innocent, but by 2013, most of them were long forgotten. None of them would be memorialized in a 6-meter tall marble statue built at public expense. This monument was constructed approximately 60 years after the end of Lincoln's war. It was built with money forcibly extracted from the people. So consider this fact. Because of this decision made by Lincoln to go to war, thousands upon thousands of children grew up with no father. And within their lifetimes, they suffered the additional indignity of being forced to pay to build a statue to memorialize and glorify the man responsible for their own father's deaths. Consider that fact. Such barbarous times, if you can believe it, lie in our own past. How grateful we should be that we were born in more than 2,000 years later. The true legacy of Lincoln's decision would not be comprehended by these ancient Americans until long after he was dead. Even in the year 2013, the year we have chosen to reconstruct, he was still held up to public adulation and admiration. It was not until the U.S. government became openly criminal and corrupt that all Americans were forced to reconsider the meaning of what he had done. The precedent that he had set to start a war in order to maintain power and his willingness to slaughter any number of people to keep his government in control was cited numerous times in the strife and unrest of the decades following the year 2013. Those politicians who held power in those turbulent decades had been raised with the myth and the false idea that this criminal was some sort of hero and that his example should be followed. And unfortunately, they did follow it, deploying military force ever more frequently to crush rebellions within their own borders, causing heartbreak for millions who yearned only to be free of what was to become an increasingly despotic and corrupted central government. So if you want to take a few minutes for pictures, that's all I have for this one.